Hello, viewers. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Immigration and Jobs Talk Show, and I am Nipasa Pradhan. I'm going to be your host for today's session, and it's going to be a wonderful one. So, before we dive into today's topic and I introduce you to our special guest, I really wanted to wish you a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you have joined us from, whatever time zone you have joined us from. Thank you so much for doing this. And there's an important disclaimer I need to read out. And that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. And friends, thank you for joining us today here at Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. We are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So feel free to drop your questions if you have any, in the comment section, wherever you're watching us from, and we'll try to get as many as we can in this session today. But before we go on to today's topic, today we have a very special guest with us, someone who is a prominent figure in the field of immigration law. And she is Sophie Alcorn. She's the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law and has been recognized as the top 10 immigration attorney in the state of California. She's also the host of the Sophie Alcorn podcast and the author of the best selling book, Ask Sophie, the Founder's Guide to Visas and Green Cards, currently based out of San Francisco Bay Area. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you with us, Sophie. Thank you so much for joining us
Hi,
today.
Nipasa. It's so wonderful to be back. Thank you so much for having me. There's a lot of exciting updates, and I'm eager to share my knowledge and answer questions. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And talking about it, I mean, let's get to know what are your thoughts on the latest update on the second lottery coming up for H1B cap.
Yes, it's so exciting. So, a couple days ago, USCIS just announced they are going to conduct a second lottery, or the random selection for the previously submitted H1Bs. So this means that if an employer put you in the lottery in March and you were not selected in April, you now get another chance. And it's really exciting. And it's also super exciting for most people in the world because they've already reached the master's cap of the 20,000 set aside for people with advanced degrees from the US. And so it means that everybody is eligible for this second lottery now. So if you have a master's degree and you're going for the master's cap, great, you still get another chance, but everybody else who just has like a bachelor's degree or the equivalent, they also get a second chance. So it's really exciting.
It is. For folks out there, I mean, all this while, everybody were like, is there a second lottery going to come up? And oh, by the way, is there any chances of maybe a third lottery maybe after this?
Right, right. It's so erratic every year. I mean, one year they had like 4 extra lotteries, and then other years they've had 0. And so it really fluctuates. I'm sure they try to do their own like predictive analysis and statistical modeling to try to get the right number, but there's always fluctuations, interest rates, layoffs, employers, whatever. So, I don't know if there's going to be another this year. I have no idea, but I'm just really happy this is happening now. I wish I knew when it was happening, but I don't. They just said soon. And if you previously registered, you're going to find out about it through your USCIS online account. And typically, they give employers 90 days to file the petition after the selection has happened, and it would still be to target an October 1st start date. So we have August, September, October. So theoretically, you could probably request a later start date than October 1st if your employer wanted. You could choose a start date up to 6 months into the future for the I-129 H-1B petition. But we'll see. Like, if you wanted to still try to make it by October, and I don't know, let's just imagine this happens next week, I think there would still be ample time for an employer and for a visa interview to go through the process. So it's really exciting.
Exciting, it is. Let's stay hopeful, folks, I would just say, and all the very best to all you folks out there who have the second chance. Let's pray for the best, okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And let's get to today's topic. Our topic for today's discussion is top visa options for employers for a quick hire. H1B versus H1B exempt versus L1 versus O1. And basically, it's the second episode, but since we couldn't cover it properly in the first episode, maybe, Sophie, if you could just give us, like a roundup, or like what can folks expect from us in today's webinar?
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I will share a little bit more. And thank you for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it. I started my law firm. My dad was an immigration lawyer. My mom's an immigrant from Germany. And I just see the grit, resilience, determination, creativity, innovation that come from our immigration system in the US. And I believe that we should live in a world where every kid has the chance to grow up and live their dreams. And so that involves, removing artificial barriers like immigration to allow people to live their best lives. So happy to keep in touch with everybody. And you had an amazing disclaimer. This is mine. This is not legal advice. Talk to a lawyer if you need individual legal advice. Obviously, whatever questions you ask are not confidential. This is just an educational service. And in my slides, I do have this QR code, which is our consultation booking link if you do need help. And let's see. And would you like me to now go into some of the overview about
Sure.
some of the background on H1Bs and Ls for a few minutes? Would that work for you?
Yes, we should do that. I think without further ado, let's get on to whatever you have for us today. And we are absolutely ready. And I hope the other folks out there are as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'll go through my slides. Feel free to jump in if anything's unclear, but I'll try to go through them in maybe 5 to 10 minutes, give everybody a brief overview of H1Bs, cap-exempt H1Bs, L1s, other types of visas, green cards, and then we can turn it over to questions, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. You're so welcome. Okay, so high-level immigration context. Lots of reasons people want to come to Silicon Valley, where I practice immigration law. They want to launch new technologies. They want to increase their profit. They want to move really fast. They want to work with the brightest minds from the world. They want to raise money and venture capital from US investors. Now, you're probably all very familiar with this in the audience, but in general, the US has visas, green cards, and citizenship. So most people, like from India, for example, would come here on a non-immigrant visa, such as a B1, B2 visitor visa for 10 years, where you can stay 6 months at a time, or an F1 student visa. And then after you're here, you have various options, such as changing your status, maybe if you got selected in the H1B lottery, or you're going to pursue an O1 visa for extraordinary ability. And then you can be sponsored for a green card, either by a family member or an employer usually. And a green card is the same thing as permanent residence. Sometimes it's called an immigrant visa. If you're already in the US, you can get it through a process called adjustment of status. You might be qualified for a work permit along the way. There might be travel restrictions at some point, but you would get an advance parole document to allow you to travel. And then 5 years after having a green card, if you want to naturalize and become a US citizen, that's something you can apply for yourself. You don't need an employer. And once you're a citizen, you can sponsor your parents for green cards. And you always have to pay taxes in the US, but you can be gone as long as you want. So lots of advantages for that. So most people come here on a visa and then get a green card. Some people do, like some folks from India who are EB-1A qualified. They might, for various reasons, choose to apply for the green card from India before moving here, but usually that can take several years. So often people want to move here quicker through a visa. And then there's a lot of international students in the US along the way. They can have work options such as curricular practical training, optional practical training, pre-completion or post-completion, the 24-month STEM OPT extension, after the up to 12 months of regular OPT after they graduate. And historically, the hope was always, I'm going to go to the US, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to get a job that'll sponsor me for the H1B. They'll put me in the lottery every year until I'm selected, and then they'll sponsor me for a perm and an I-140. But several big companies recently announced that with all the tech layoffs, they're no longer engaging in their perm programs for their employees. So these this path is not as secure as it used to be. And so, definitely excited to provide alternative options. So for work visas, the most common, we talked a little bit about the H1B lottery, so that's very exciting. It is possible to hire people with H1B transfers, and you would need current or previous H1B status. The new US employer has to proactively file the H1B visa transfer petition. They have to prove that they have the ability to pay the prevailing wage. And if somebody's already maxed out their 6 years on H1B status, there are ways to get extensions beyond the 6 years through a law called AC-21. And that is based on having a perm or an I-140 approved. And then you can get either 3-year or 1-year extensions. So lots of people from India utilize that. Now, we did get a question about what is a cap-exempt H1B. So these are H1Bs that do not require the lottery. They are available at any time of the year. And the best way to use it to have a job at a private company is to obtain 2 concurrent H1Bs at the same time. So step 1 is to either get a part-time job at a qualifying cap-exempt employer. So that could be a university for a part-time teaching assistant job. It could be at a nonprofit associated with a university or a nonprofit research institution. There are various global talent fellowships and organizations that have sprung up to support this. So you basically work for them for 5 hours or 10 hours a week to get your first H1B. And then while you're doing that job, you don't have to go through the lottery to get a second concurrent H1B with a private employer. So your other employer can then sponsor a part-time or full-time concurrent H1B. So that's been very, very beneficial. And just to recap, those cap-exempt organizations that you could get the first job at include universities, government research organizations, nonprofit research organizations, and nonprofits affiliated with universities. Okay, so those were H's. And just another note on H's before I move forward, because we work with a lot of startup founders. We've gotten H1Bs approved for CEOs of pre-revenue startups, even where they're the 100% owner, and even where there's no major venture capital investor. The government is very interested in allowing folks on H1B to become startup founders because they recognize the innovation potential that people on H1B have to develop new critical and emerging technologies and AI and ML and other areas. So if you are on an H1B and want to be a founder before getting a green card, it is definitely possible. And you could even do that with a cap-exempt H1B. Okay, so now for employers, another option that they look at would be an L1 intra-company transferee visa. And the basic setup would be there's, and we work with a lot of startups. So typically for a startup, it would be a parent company with an office in San Francisco, maybe incorporated in Delaware, and it has like a wholly owned subsidiary, like private limited company in India. And there's people who've been employed at the Indian office for at least 1 year out of the last 3 years as managers or executives or people with specialized knowledge. And now the US office is transferring them over to be a manager, executive, or person with specialized knowledge in the US. So you can come for up to 3 years initially, or 1 year if it's a new office. You can get 2-year extensions. The L1A can be extended up to 7 years. The L1B can be extended up to 5 years. And the other really cool thing about the L1A for managers and executives is that it provides a path to the EB1C green card pathway, which is the fastest. EB1 is the fastest green card pathway. So if you're from India and you don't qualify for extraordinary ability yet, it can be very helpful to get that EB1C approved as well. Now, the O1s are also very popular right now. It's typically a 3-year initial petition for extraordinary ability. And then beyond the first 3 years, you can either get 1-year extensions or new 3-year petitions can be renewed indefinitely. If you are from India, you get a 5-year multiple entry visa in your passport. The O1 visa interviews are usually pretty fast. To qualify for an O1, you need 3 of the 8 categories that are pretty well established. So that could be like awards, people writing about you. What did you create or invent? Are you a leader? Are you a member of organizations that are hard to get into? Are you a judge of who is an expert in your field? Are you an author or a speaker? Have you earned a high amount of money relative to your other people in a similar role in your geographic area? So these factors can be mixed and matched. You can do it if you are a founder, a researcher, an engineer, a TikTok influencer, an inventor. We just mix and match the categories in different ways. And the other cool thing about the O1 is you can be self-employed, you can have multiple streams of income, you can have one job at an employer, you can have many projects. So it's a very flexible thing, although the drawback would be that your spouse does not automatically get a work permit. So just various factors to keep in mind. And I am absolutely here to help, and we'll be sharing my contact information more, but you can always reach out to me and my firm at alcorn.law. And my book, Ask Sophie, is available on Amazon and Audible. And yeah, okay. So there we go. That is the overview. And I'm so delighted now to ask questions, to, answer questions or chat or anything else that would be helpful.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for that wonderful presentation, I would say. And you made it so much clearer with all these slides you had to provide for us. So
Thank you.
really happy to have you.
Appreciate it.
All right. So was good. And I'm sure folks already have questions. I can see actually. So Rocky Berman, thank you so much for your questions. Raja Shaker, hi, thank you. Just stay with us. We will take up your questions. And absolutely great so far, so good. So a lot of things going on. I mean, as far as immigration is concerned, and with the elections coming up, I think everybody they have questions in their head. What is going to happen if Kamala Harris is going to be selected, or what is going to happen if Donald Trump is going to be selected? What do you think? What do you have to share with our folks out there?
It's been such a roller coaster this year, and I'm always like recalculating what the immigration landscape will look like. Okay, here's what I can say about both as it stands now, not knowing what the outcome will be. So first of all, we've had a lovely 4 years of this Biden administration from an immigration perspective. We got out of the COVID backlogs. Consular processing is back to decent times for most countries around the world. Premium processing is available for more cases. The online lottery, H1B system's working. So there's been a lot of improvements. And also for startup founders, international entrepreneur parole is now another option as well. If you get, the levels are about to increase, but say you get $320,000 of investment from a US angel or VC investor, that could qualify you for our equivalent of a startup visa now. So all those things are wonderful improvements from this Biden administration. If there is a Republican administration, what we saw during the last Trump administration was the Muslim ban, high levels of RFEs for H1Bs, stopping H1Bs for computer programmers, litigation about H1B third-party contractors, slower processing times because State Department officials were leaving their consular posts. The whole system got slower, and there was more friction. That being said, one of the things that former President Trump mentioned on a podcast with some venture capital investors a few weeks ago was that he's actually in favor of a proposal that Hillary Clinton originally came up with, which is essentially like the staple the green card to the diploma sort of idea, which is like, look, if you're smart enough to come here and be enrolled in our universities on an F1, you should theoretically have a path to a green card and citizenship. So what that looks like, I have no idea in practice. I think if there's a Republican administration, it would take some resolution of the US-Mexico border and asylum situation that would need to get clarified before anybody's going to move forward on high skilled. But if that's in place, high skilled would become very easy. If it's a Democrat administration, like under Harris, for example, I think we'll see general similar positive trends to what we've seen for the last 4 years, but she's also very different. And she might have, I mean, she's been focusing very intently on the southern border, on getting investment into Latin American countries to try to create more economic abundance there. So there's less migration flows to the US. So her stance on high skilled is probably slightly different. Maybe she'll be more proactive, but in general, I think the Democratic Party wants to see an increase of high skilled, even for example, making O1s and EB1A and EB2 and IW self-petition green card pathways more accessible. So that's my analysis now. Now, depending on who either of them hire to actually implement their campaign ideas, then that's like a completely different thing as well. Because remember, President Trump was kind of like pro high skilled. He wanted a skills based thing like Canada and Australia when he ran before. But then the person he put in charge of immigration had very different perspectives. So, well, I don't know.
So true. And there are things changing. There's still a few more months. So anything can happen.
Yeah, anything. It's going to be a wild ride in the reality TV show of American politics for the next several months. But in general, what I've been telling people is, if you want to move here and you're eligible now, like, don't dilly dally. It would probably be a good idea, if you qualify, to just get it done now, and then at least you're in line, in the queue, waiting, and then that would be an advantage for whatever happens in the future.
Yes, just keep your game up. I think, see what chances you have and try to put your game up. I think, yes, that's how it always works. All right. Thank you, Sophie. That was very nice and good to know your views on this as well. So let's get back to our topic and let's get back to the questions folks have for us as well. All right. So let's take a few let's take this one from Rajat. Rajat is asking on YouTube. If someone is selected in the first round of the H1B lottery and their employer submits a petition, is there still a possibility that they might not receive a call for a visa interview from the embassy?
It would be very, very rare and unlikely. So typically what would happen is the employer had to submit the petition by June 30th. And the employer could pay for premium processing, but doesn't have to. So you could find out if they did. If they did, you should have already gotten an approval or a request for evidence by now, because it's been a month and they are supposed to take action within 15 days. If your employer does not want to pay for premium processing, then you are able to. So you can ask them to upgrade it, and you can, in that situation, you can personally pay the $2,805 to ask for premium processing. Once there is a decision, your petition will go through the electronic system to be transferred to the State Department. And then you should be able to schedule your visa interview at a consulate of your choosing based on the available processing times of the different consulates, which fluctuate a lot. And then you go for your visa stamping interview. And usually the visa is granted pretty directly after that. There is a situation called administrative processing, where the government can do additional background checks or look at the company that's sponsoring you, or maybe there's maybe your name is similar to somebody else's, so they have to disambiguate your background check with somebody else's. So that can take a long, indeterminate amount of time, but that's extremely rare. So in most cases, but you don't just randomly receive a call for a visa interview. You have to work with your employer and your immigration attorney to proactively schedule the visa interview. It's not just going to magically happen. You have to take action.
Right. Plus this year, I think it was very beneficiary centric. So only employers or people who were registering for the folks with H1B, only they get to see what the status is, right?
Yeah, the employers are responsible for the process. So they create the online accounts, they put their candidates into the system. Exactly. So you need to be kind to your HR person so that they're willing to share information with you. Don't annoy them too much.
For sure. So, but anyway, I mean, a call, if it ever happens, it's only going to go directly to the employers, right? Not to the
Yeah.
person.
The employer has to check the online system to see if there's been an update
Exactly.
and to see if you've been selected. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Rajat, for your question. I hope that's pretty clear now since Sophie has answered that. Should we take up another one, Sophie, from the
Let's do
audience?
it. Let's do it.
Okay. This is from Pedoju. Filed
Okay.
H1B with my PG from India, post graduation from India. I want to know that my application will be in regular pool only. No. Yeah.
Probably,
As-
yeah, because the U.S. master's cap is for people who got an advanced degree from a qualifying. So, like, if you had a master's degree from the U.S., you would go into the master's cap. But if you have a master's degree from India, you would go into the regular cap. But everybody in the world is going to be included in the next round, in the second lottery round. So you should be included in the regular pool now.
Okay. All the best, Peduju. I hope you make it. Let's take another one. This is also from YouTube. This is from Rag. Heard elsewhere from Sophie that L1s are heavily scrutinized and not encouraged to jump into. What do you have to say about your own comment,
Thanks for
Sophie?
holding me to task, Rog, and thanks for listening to various things I've said in the world. I'm trying to make this more accessible for people. This is something that fluctuates a lot. So I would say recently we've been quite successful with L1s. Sometimes there's trends in the immigration lawyer forums where it's like, what the heck? They have 10 employees and there was still a horrendous RFE. So I think it just fluctuates, but really the principle that I would take away from the last few years from Republicans and Democrats alike is if you want to get an L1, you need to have like a functional company abroad that's going to keep going without the person who's transferring to the US. That organization, let's just say in India, needs to have employees, a revenue stream, growth plans. If you're the sole employee in India, you're not going to be able to transfer to the US. They want to see that you're supporting a multinational growing business. Now, the smallest possible size for the foreign employer, I think that we've gotten it improved with like 5 to 10 employees to transfer an executive to the US. So it doesn't have to be that big, but it should still have a presence. And then you should be able to withstand any L1 scrutiny. I think that's my current approach.
Thank you so much. And Rag, I'm sure you are a total immigration enthusiast. I mean, really good to have you back on our show because I remember you from yesterday's show as well. So thank you, Rag. And yeah, thank you for watching Sophie and her comments as well.
Thank you.
Sophie, you're watched, so be careful. Just kidding.
I know. I
All
go to
right.
coffee
So
shops now in the Bay Area, and when people like, I'm like, I don't know if you're recognizing me or if you're just looking at me. I don't know. But if you
but
see me in
I'm
real
sure
life,
people
say hi.
recognize you. And you
What's
just go
that?
walking around like that. I'm sure they
Uh,
recognize you, I mean, from your book, from your
I'm in the
podcast.
heart of Silicon Valley, and so now I'm like, I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. You will meet, what do you call people are, I mean, your, what do you call them? Who will have to look after you?
Oh,
Uh,
I hope not.
Guards, like not guards. There's another word. I'm so sorry.
Security
That's
guard.
just slipping out of my mind. But yeah. All right.
Need a
Let's
bouncer.
take this
No,
one
no,
from
no.
Rocky. Yeah.
Okay.
Heard about H1B exempt visas, but I'm not sure how they work. Can you tell me about the advantages and the disadvantages of pursuing H1B exempt status for my company and how it
Absolutely.
differs from regular H1B visas?
Yeah. Thank you.
This is a long
And
one.
thank you, Rocky. This is a great question. So I mentioned it a little bit in the presentation. Uh, the disadvantage of pursuing cap exempt H1B status is it takes time and money. And so if you get somebody selected in the lottery, overall it's cheaper, but it's just risky because they might never get selected. There's about a 25% chance. So if you have a company and it's like a for-profit LLC or corporation or something doing business with revenue, for your organization to become cap exempt itself, you would have to like incorporate a new 501c3 and have revenue there and like set up a whole additional company. Most employers don't want to do that. Most employers would work with one of these nonprofit affiliated with universities, institutions to do the cap exempt H1B sponsorship for their employees. And so that's worked very successfully for candidates around the world, for my clients for years. And there's different organizations springing up with different price points to do that and different offerings. The drawbacks of working with them are you're paying another organization to employ your candidate for several hours a week. Your candidate has to do other stuff that fits with the educational nature of the nonprofit, like training American students on an internship that they have. But you can set that up to be beneficial for your company and have a domestic talent pipeline as well with, students who are familiar with the work you're doing. So your employee, has some additional obligations they need to maintain during the whole course of the H1B, or until they get selected for the lottery, or until they get a green card. But if you're, if your organization has cash flow, and if getting somebody to the US is important and urgent, and if that person is not otherwise qualified for like an L1 or an O1 or some other type of visa, and if you don't want to go through the pain of trying to organize a part-time TA-ship with an H1B at a university yourself for your candidate, I mean, these are wonderful cap exempt organizations that can help you get somebody to the US working with you in person in like 2 to 3 months with very little risk. So from that perspective, it can be worth it. It's a different cost benefit analysis for every employer. So.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that makes it very clear. I mean, to Rocky, thank you so much, Rocky. Very interesting question. And Sophie as well for taking that up.
Thank you.
Moving on, I think we will take up your questions, folks, but I think now it's time for a short break. So if you have questions and want to contact Attorney Sophie Alcorn directly, why not call her in this number, 855-644-2581. And you can email her hello@alcorn.law. That's how you can get in touch with Sophie Alcorn. She is also the founder of Alcorn Law and a best-selling author. Thank you so much. And definitely go visit www.alcorn.law to get to know more about Alcorn Law. And thank you, folks, for being here. Don't go anywhere because we're going to definitely talk more for the top visa options out there for you. So stay with us here on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. This is Nipasa Pradhan with Sophie Alcorn.
Thank you so much.
IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry, exceptional employee benefits, highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us in the number 408-335-6444 or mail us at nipa@higheritpeople.com or visit our website www.higheritpeople.com.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I am Nipasa Pradhan, and today we are discussing on this topic, top visa options for employers for a quick hire, H1B versus H1B exempt versus L1 versus O1. And this is the second episode with none other than our guest for today, Sophie Alcorn. So good to have you, Sophie, once again. And welcome back to this second half of this webinar. I hope you're having a good time.
Thank you so much. I am. I love all the questions, and it's so great chatting with you about all this. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to have you. And folks out there, for those of you who have been seeing Sophie and you know that she's a familiar face, let me tell you a little more about her. She is Sophie Alcorn, the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law, and has been recognized as the top 10 immigration attorney in the state of California. And she also is the host of the Sophie Alcorn podcast and the author of the best-selling book, Ask Sophie, The Founder's Guide to Visa and Green Cards. And maybe, Sophie, would you like to tell us what sorts of things do you discuss in your podcast, maybe, and how's it going?
Sure. Yeah, the podcast is really fun for me, and I hope everybody subscribes and listens. I will put the link in the chat window so that you can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But it's a weekly podcast, and it's about everything I am interested in. So definitely subscribe. It changes all the time. Most recently this year, and the archive is, I think, a tremendous resource because I have over 100 episodes on what is an H1B, what is an O1, what is an L1, how do I get a green card, how do I consular process, what do I do with an RFE? So I did that for 100 episodes. Then I wanted to change it up. So recently I've been interviewing people. My most recent nerd fascination is outer space immigration, which I think as a planet we need to prepare for the future.
Wow, that's very exciting and futuristic for sure. So tell us more. That's totally out of the box, so out of this world.
Out of these, absolutely. I've been interviewing space law professors, space startup founders, former fighter pilots, people doing intellectual property law for space tech. It's fascinating stuff, and it's really brand new territory. And I just want to make sure that when we have hotels in space and a moon base and people are going to Mars, that we have a clear, clean, wonderful immigration system that allows people to effortlessly go between the Earth and other destinations. And like that kids born in space will have a citizenship after multiple generations so they can come back, right? This is like far-fetched sci-fi, but I love it.
Me too. You say it sounds so exciting, and wow, yes, we're going to have some immigration law for space too, for sure.
Yeah, I would love to be in the room and help write the treaty because the law is super antiquated, I figured out, and people who, like, technically, if you send something into outer space, it's still the property of your country. And if it lands back in your country, it's like it never left. But if it lands in somebody else's country, then there would be immigration and export. But if you're just like on the moon, you're still in the US or in India, if that's where you left from. But you can't own property in space. You own your equipment, but you don't own the surface of the moon. So it's super confusing. And there's like a lot of legal concepts, like if you have a slip and fall in a space hotel, do you have to take it to the UN, or is there some like private right of action? So I'm just fascinated. I want to help with this. Now for the fall with the podcast, I was just at the Capitol yesterday in Washington, D.C., and I've been really involved in conversations about artificial intelligence and bringing startup founders to the US and helping people to be able to innovate these new technologies. And so for the fall, my focus for the podcast is going to be talking to bipartisan lawmakers, former members of Congress, about prospects for high-skilled immigration reform, because it's something I'm really, really passionate about.
Very nice, very nice. And talking about AI, it's taking over so many spaces, workspaces, whether it's media or any field for that matter. So do you have to say a little bit about artificial intelligence as well?
Oh, God. Well, it's affecting everything. And if people don't know it yet, then maybe have a look, because it is happening. And it's one of those things that's like happening exponentially. So it's like oh, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, it matters. It's happening. And there's huge potential for innovation in the field. And, it's even going to affect like our power grid to have data centers that can actually, run all of these LLMs and different like GPUs and LPUs and all of that. So there's a lot of like logistical and infrastructure opportunities. So if anybody wants to, this was my learning yesterday, knowing about AI and electrical engineering with the power grid is like a job of the future that will be very, very important in the United States, definitely in the national interest. So there's like new opportunities like that coming up all the time. And Biden's executive order very much promotes AI as well as any other critical and emerging technology in the national interest. So if you want to pursue one of these fields, there's funding, there's visa and green card opportunities. Like we want you here. And there's a lot of potential for what you can create that can help the world.
So folks out there who are still fortunate to be a student maybe so far, I think you can think about pursuing something with artificial intelligence, because I think that is the future for sure.
Absolutely. And it's not even just artificial intelligence, which is the other interesting thing. And I'll provide this link to your team.
And it's not just future. I mean, it is happening already.
It's happening now, but our government isn't just interested in AI. It got all smushed together in the AI executive order, but it's advanced computing, advanced engineering materials, advanced networking, AI, biotech, clean energy, data privacy, cybersecurity, autonomous vehicles, human machine interfaces, quantum, semiconductor, space tech. So there's actually a lot of really, really exciting opportunities for careers.
Sure. So thank you so much, Sophie. I mean, that was very enlightening, and I'm sure folks are going to be more interested to get to know more about this. So don't forget to check out Sophie Alcorn, folks. Her, information is scrolling on the screen. You just note them down. And we will go on to the questions now because we just have a little more time. And Rag, who had questioned us earlier, has more questions for us. What documents should the employer periodically submit to the USCIS during the L1 visa holder's tenure?
Great question, Rag. There's no like random compliance checks where you just have to send in information as an employer, but they will evaluate everything on the renewal, such as the extension. So at that point, you're going to need to be able to show that your company is still doing business, revenue, tax filings, your org chart, that the job still exists, that the person's been working there, that you've been paying them properly, if they've, been growing in their career at all or their responsibilities. All of those things are super helpful to show.
Thank you so much, Rag, for your question again. And Rag says that he liked the NVCA podcast of yours. Very nice.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That was a fun one. The National Venture Capital Association is a really great organization. They actually litigated to keep the International Entrepreneur Parole Program, which is like our startup visa, to keep it alive. And it's been really great working with them. Silicon Valley investors are very interested and motivated to keep immigrant entrepreneurs coming to Silicon Valley. So there are supporters for immigrants who are very vocal and who definitely do a lot to help.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And thank you, Rag. Like I was saying earlier, you totally are an immigration enthusiast, and it's lovely to see that you're following up. Thank you for joining us here. Yeah. Let's move on to Raja Sekhar. H1B visa petition was selected in the initial lottery, but the employer is now facing financial difficulties and may need to withdraw the petition. If we withdraw the petition, can we still participate in the second lottery, or will that impact our client's eligibility?
Withdrawing the petition will remove the beneficiary's eligibility. So it would be really lovely if this employer could maybe just wait a few weeks to see if this person is chosen in the second lottery before making any sudden moves. If so, an H1B, let's just pretend this person gets selected. The H1B has to be filed in good faith. So if the employer is having financial difficulties, and really would never hire this person, they just shouldn't file it. If they're having financial difficulties, but they would still love to have this person work on October 1st, but they just don't know if their financials would qualify, it might be worth it to move through with the petition. Maybe the person will get selected. And, if they have to fire you because they can't pay you after October 1st, at least at that point, you would have, approved H1B petition, you would have been counted against the lottery, and then you could try to do an H1B transfer to another employer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for taking that up. I'm sure Raja Sekhar is very happy with your answer. All right, let's take up this next one. This is from Ankit. I have heard that O1 visas are a great option for hiring top talent quickly, but I want to learn more. Can you explain the eligibility requirements and application processes for O1 visas and how they differ from H1B and L1 visas?
Great question, Ankit. Absolutely. So in one sense, they're all visas. There's a petition with USCIS. You can pay for premium processing. USCIS will make a decision. Once there's an approval, you go schedule a visa appointment. You get a visa in your passport. You come in. You do the job you said you would do. So they're all similar in that respect. But who qualifies is very, very different. So the H1B, super straightforward. Bachelor's degree or equivalent, company that's offering you a professional job that has the ability to pay you. That's that, super easy to get through. The L1 is like, hey, you've been working for us abroad for a year and we got to transfer you here now to help run things in the States. The O1 is a different beast. It's saying, hey, Ankit is the very best XYZ, the very best AI enterprise SaaS AI startup founder of India, focusing on helping the healthcare vertical. And now, because he's so extraordinary in India, we want him to be able to come to the US to do XYZ, whatever you want. Start a company, get a part-time job, get a full-time job, be a consultant, do all of those things at once. So the O1 is very different. It's like, hey, we already know you're the best at something in your country. So come on here, tell us what you're going to do, but you can basically do anything you want as long as you get pre-clearance for that and set it up in the petition. So there's a lot of flexibility. It doesn't have to be from your home country. You could be famous in a third country. You could be famous in the US. And what famous means is very, there's a lot of grace within that standard. So if you think that you even might have 3 of the 8 criteria for an O1, whether you're a researcher or a TikTok star or like an entrepreneur, at least get an assessment from an attorney. Will do that for you because it's a really great option. If you're not married or if your spouse doesn't need to work, it's a really, really great option because you have a ton of job flexibility in your field. It's basically like having a work permit to do whatever you love. So definitely would encourage people. And the other critical thing I just want to mention is you do not need to have an employer to petition you. You can also have an agent. And this is something we copied and pasted from Hollywood where movie stars have agents. Now we're doing that for Silicon Valley clients where software engineers have agents. So that's the method by which you don't have to have just one job. We can include an itinerary of your services. You can have projects come and go, consulting work, startups, all of that. So if you don't, you could even get the O1 first through an agent, through a subset of jobs, and then go to I don't think big tech likes to hire people with O1 agents, but they could just transfer your O1 to them. Or a small company would be like, oh yeah, you can just work part-time for us. Great. We don't have to do your visa. Great. So it's a really wonderful option.
Yes. And like you were saying, I mean, especially if you're talking about famous people, it's not like a one-man band or anything. I'm sure they'll have managers, they'll have people who make them who they are, makeup artists or dress up
Yeah,
artist.
yeah.
I don't know.
I had one guy at a big tech company that was like, "Do you think I qualify? I've written like 40 letters of recommendations for my direct reports and they all got extraordinary ability, but can I qualify?" I'm like, "Yes, sir. You're very, very qualified." So there's lots of different
Yeah.
ways to qualify.
Right, right. And then there's also the P3, right, which is pretty similar, a little different.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
also, so, but Ankit, I would just say it's always best to consult an attorney where you
Yeah.
tell them your whole case, your whole situation, and they can guide you best where you fit. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right, let's move on now. We have another question. This is from Afreen. Is there a minimum salary for a job in H1B status? What status would my spouse and children have when I am granted H1B status? Also, I want to know in details how concurrent H1B visa work.
Okay. There is a minimum salary for a job in H1B. It depends on the job, your level of responsibility and experience, and the geographic area. It is the employer's responsibility, working with the immigration attorney, to calculate it's called the prevailing wage for your job. So there's a government website. You can do like a government wage search on the FLAG Department of Labor website to try to estimate it, but it's part of the legal process to figure it out. The spouse and children of an H1B holder have H4 dependent status, which does not automatically authorize spouses to work, but everybody can be here with you. Kids can go to school. They're considered your kids till they're 21. And then how does the concurrent H1B visa work? Well, the two programs that I'm aware of right now, one of them, they both involve your employer's participation. So really you should have your employer reach out to my law firm to figure out how to support you. But two of the programs I've worked with, the more established one is called Open Avenues Foundation. They have the Build Fellowship. And the new one is called the Parachute Project, and they have different pricing models and different requirements. There may be more out there as well, but those are the two I've heard of.
Lovely. Thank you, Afreen, for your question, and Sophie as well for taking that up. All right, we have Ankit again. Another question. Can I sponsor an employee for an O1 visa if they are already in the US on a different visa status, such
Absolutely.
as an F1 or J1? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's just called a change of status. And then if they want to go for a stamping interview for the new O1 petition, they can schedule that. But that's very straightforward as long as they're maintaining valid F1 or J1 status. The exception is if somebody is subject to the 212E 2-year foreign residence requirement for their J1 because they got government funding or a Fulbright scholarship or something, they're supposed to go back home for 2 years after their J1. But even if they are subject to that 2-year requirement, they can still qualify for an O1. They're just not eligible for a change of status. They have to go back in consular process to activate it.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that. All right, this next one, this is Nirlip. He has two questions. We'll take this first one first. Can I sponsor an employee? Oh, this is the same one. Sorry. Are there any specific requirements or procedures for converting their status to an O1 visa? And how will it impact their stay in the US?
Yes, it is a specific process. So you have to meet the O1 requirements. You have to do the O1 change of status petition. If you have selected a change of status to O1, when their I-797 approval notice comes, it will have the start and end dates for the requested O1 status, which will take effect automatically when they're in the US on that date. So this becomes their new I-94, and they will have a new date by which to leave the United States.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your question, Nirlep. And thank you, Sophie, as well. Rag also says thank you. Thanks, Sophie and Nipasa. So sweet. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. I think we have covered most of our questions, but just in case if I've missed anything, let me just have a look. Yeah, I think that is. Oh, we have this next one. This is from Esther. What can be like a hindrance for your H1B petition filed? How long does it take to get a response from the USCIS currently?
What can be a hindrance? Well, you have to meet the requirements. So if the government wants to scrutinize the employer's ability to pay you, or if they are concerned that it's not a specialty occupation under the laws about if that job role qualifies, they might issue a request for evidence. If they're concerned whether you've been maintaining your status, they could ask you for more documents. So those are some of the common requests for evidence triggers. Now, how long does it take to get a response? It depends on if you have requested premium processing. If you did, then it's 15 days to get an answer. And if you didn't, it's usually many months. Let's check this out. I'm just looking at the USCIS case processing time website. So if you are being sponsored by an employer in California for an H1B to be issued abroad, then, and if you don't choose premium processing, they're going to take 6 months to make a decision on the petition. So most of my clients proactively choose premium processing every single time because they can't wait around for this. But it's a range depending on where you are, where the company is, when you filed it, but it's usually many months. But you can always upgrade. If your employer didn't want to pay for premium processing, you can be like, hey, let me pay the $2,805 myself, and then you can get it done.
There you go, Esther. I think you have your options there, and all the best. It should work. Yes. And thank you so much. I mean, I think with this, we can wrap up our show for today because I think we've covered most of our questions from the audience, and it was a lovely presentation, making things so much clearer for us. Today we spoke about top visa options for employers for a quick hire, and of course, the different visas. Thank you so much, Sophie. And maybe before we go off, if you could just give an end note to all our audience out there, and yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nipasa. Well, this was really fun, and I love everybody's questions. And thank you for those folks who have been following my work. I really appreciate it. That always feels great to hear that I've been able to help you and maybe make a little bit of a difference in your life. So that's super exciting. In summary, I just want to end on a positive note because I feel like people don't realize how much power and control they have over their immigration destiny. So like if you have a burning desire to move to the US, to live here, to get a green card, yeah, you can do it by, 90 Day Fiance, marrying somebody, falling in love, probably fall in love first and then marry them. You can do it by getting a job. Those are very unreliable. So I built my practice on people who are self-petitioning their own way. And that way, whether it's an O1, whether it's an EB2 national interest waiver, I-140 self-petition, followed by an upgrade to like an EB1A for extraordinary ability to fast track your green card. Like I've really built my practice on helping people take responsibility for their immigration into their own hands. And I just want to encourage everybody, like it is so wonderful when you have a kind employer who respects you and who wants to help you through this journey. That's like the best. But if you don't have that yet, you don't have to just like wait around wondering. You can actively build up your profile to qualify for many types of options. So I just want to give you that note of encouragement and hope that this is actually within your control, which surprises a lot of people. So, so thank you for that opportunity, Nipasa.
Thank you so much. Really, I mean, you're giving us a total different perspective, and absolutely nothing better than depending on your own self, who you can trust entirely. So why not?
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophie. It was really wonderful to have you. You have a great day ahead, but I would really love you to join us once again. So I will look forward for that.
I would love that anytime. It's so fun chatting with you. Thank you for doing this. And thank you to your amazing team.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yay. Awesome. Bye-bye. Have a great day. And folks out there, thank you so much today. It was really lovely having all your questions as well. And thank you. Sophie, you were amazing once again. Let me tell you that. And folks, feel free to contact Sophie. Her Number is 855-644-2581. And you can even email her hello@alcorn.law and visit her website, www.alcorn.law.com. Sorry, www.alcorn.law. That's her website. And thank you, friends. You can even contact me. And if you're looking for a project placement, H4, green cards, anything related to immigration or jobs, feel free to contact me as well. My number is 408-335-6444, and my email address is nipa@higherITpeople.com, and visit our website, www.higherITpeople.com, to get to know more about us. For now, this is it, but definitely stay tuned to our space. Our handle is Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Don't forget to subscribe to us, like, share, and also look out for another webinar that I'm going to be joining you with, another guest, and that's going to happen at 2 p.m. EDT. So look out for that. Thank you so much for joining us now, and have a great day ahead. This is Nipasa Pradhan signing off from Immigration and Jobs Talk Show.
Consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for U.S. citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry, exceptional employee benefits, highly rated by our employees, global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us in the number